Hello, Kitty.
Yes. Anyway, so it's recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the 50th anniversary of Star Trek tonight, and we don't have a trailer for you. It's not done.
No.
So movie. So we're going to talk about Star Trek.
Filming's been difficult
All summer.
pretty much all summer for a lot of different reasons. But we're not quite as far along with the shooting as we thought we were going to be, but rest assured, it's still very much in the works.
We're still going to call it 50th anniversary thing, and still, even if it's late 2016, early 2017.
We'll just say it got held up for legal reasons and generate some controversy. Drum up some extra box office. Also, it's going to be chock full of nudity.
Yes, there won't be any box office incident because we can't make any money on it.
Yeah, that's true. It will be made completely
just watch
free.
It. Free.
So,
yeah.
No
already
profit.
paid for.
Yep.
No. Sure. Starship Chimera. At some point before December 31st, 26 maybe.
We hope. But
yes.
Yeah, we've already talked about that. But we
Star
haven't
Trek
talked
is
about
50,
how today
and we were doing a 50th anniversary kind of a movie. So to go on about it.
The whole shtick of Chimera is that it is a mishmash of all of the legacy of the different
Star Treks, including the classic
series and tropes and all of that kind of stuff.
Prime Universe.
Thrown into a blender, and we hit frappe and poured out the deliciousness that will be hopefully Chimera.
So Star Trek started in 1966 on September 8th.
Yep.
I wasn't born yet, neither were you.
Yeah.
But
you have to wonder, on the night of the first broadcast, did any of the people making it, including Roddenberry and the actors, realize that it was going to go on to be this huge cultural epoch-shaping phenomena? Probably not. They probably thought they were making a space show that was kind of like a cowboy show, but in space, and go on for a few seasons, and then everybody'd move on to the...
They didn't realize the massive campaigns for keep it going for after the 3 years. What also was interesting is I remember watching the Back to Space Trek thing on the Star Trek Lives phenomenon. The show would run for about 78 episodes, original classic show, Kirk, Spock, and Bones, and they had the Star Trek Lives campaign and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And apparently, my older siblings, not my closest sibling, were in the background somewhere, which is interesting. If you look at I was looking at the old Back to Space Trek footage, and I'm not going to say their names because then they'd be really, why is there names in the video? So I'm not saying their names, but
always a good idea to get permission.
I was watching it. I was reminded of this by the sister that's up north. That was all. She's going to go see Star Trek Beyond. She hadn't seen it yet. But she's going to go see it with Johnny in there. I should have said a name. But she's going to go.
It's a pretty common name.
Her son, yeah. She's going to go see the movie. She said she was totally into the whole thing when it started, when she was a teenager and beyond. And she went to the convention thing down there. And and I didn't mention to her, but I have footage of that convention, so that's pretty cool. So
which just goes to show you how popular the show was right off the bat.
So I thought it was her. I looked at the convention. I was like, oh my goodness, that's wow. She's there. Cool. Right on. Well, if anybody else was going to be Trekkie, it would be this particular sister. But and then when Star Trek Enterprise went off the air, we tried to save that, but it didn't work. So
the problem with Enterprise, if we're going to jump around the timeline a little bit, and why not? Because it's Star Trek, they do it all the time. Was that it probably shouldn't have gone with doing a prequel, and if they were going to, they really needed to think it out, like what the vision of the show was going to be, and they honestly did not figure that out until the 4th season. And by then it was kind of too late. The 4th season was kind of when it felt like, oh, this is what this show coulda, woulda, shoulda. So by then the ratings were terrible, and it didn't help that they were advertising the show really badly every week.
Make it look like a wrestling show or a porno.
Yeah, every week, you won't believe how steamy hot it gets. And then it's
weird.
It's because it's set in a jungle, so it's steamy hot. Get it? You know, but the trailer tries to make it look like, Captain, my Vulcan boobies are excited and I need you to massage it. It's like, that doesn't happen in the episode at all, but they're trying to cut it that way.
But yeah, so, I remember we had gone over all of the other stuff in brief, but basically when when we were young teenagers, there was a Star Trek movie that filmed in San Francisco, and then there was followed by a new television show. They brought it back called Next Generation, and I was 16.
But in the interim, there was also the animated series.
The animated series in '73, and by then, but I was 3.
Yep. So we were a little young to have caught the animated series in its first iteration. But
they had it in rerun.
But what's interesting about it is that a lot of the scripts that they ended up going
by
with
the people
were or originally intended to be for not a reboot, but like a continuation of original classic Trek.
Which became the Star Trek movies, motion picture.
Right. And without going into that too much, but the motion picture was huge undertaking, and it took them forever to figure out what they wanted to do.
And Star Wars had just come out in '77, so they're like, "Oops, yeah, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to make it ray guns and computer.
Right.
We're going to make it cerebral and trippy, which in some ways kind of made the motion picture kind of boring.
In other ways, it's the one.
It's the one that's closest to Star Trek.
That's closest, feels the most like classic Trek, more than any of the other.
The Robert Wise Special Edition. Does fix some of it.
Finally put together properly and fix some of the effects and some of the continuity. So if you're going to see it for the first time, if you've never seen it because you heard like, oh, that's the boring one, get the special edition one and start with that. And if you really like it, then go back to the original and kind of see like how they almost got it right. Like there were some problems with it, but it's interesting in that the fact that they were, even just 10 years after the show was off the air, they were cramming to try and keep it alive and feed this fan base that it just kept growing and growing just through reruns. And it got to the point, where it's like, all right, we're ready for this huge budget motion picture. It's going to be a series at a time when film series were not that common. Sequels weren't common in the 70s and up into the 80s. But Star
the
Trek,
horror movie sequels were.
Well, the slasher movies, because they didn't cost anything to make. But the fact that Star Trek was one of the few that...
Star Trek and then Star Wars at the same time, sort of.
Right. Well, Star Wars was conceived as a trilogy, but Star Trek was kind of open-ended. And the fact that it resonated and became a hit and was one of the few movie franchises going at the time speaks of how beloved and enduring it's been.
Yeah, and now we have 3 movies, and... in the can, and Star Trek Beyond was really good.
I liked
the third one was not so good. We've got a whole review of that if you want to see that.
We hashed over that. Suffice
but
to say,
which I spoofed in the Silly Trek movie.
Oh yeah,
and I was climbing up the ground, which is what he did. But
yeah, pretty much. I mean, he was trying, but without again because we've talked about it before. But Star Trek V used to be considered pretty much the worst of the franchise and one of the worst sci-fi movies by Trek fans who felt so bummed out about it that, we tended to be very hyperbolic and bombastic. It's like, oh, it's worse than Plan 9. It isn't really. But it was definitely a letdown after the, certainly the even-numbered Trek films, 2 and 4. That being said, I think the third movie actually kind of has improved with age. You can go back to Search for Spock and really enjoy it.
And 2 and 3 and 4 are a trilogy.
Yes, they have a definitive point A to point B and pick up where the last one left off story arc. 5 just kind of jumps in there with some weirdness about space god and Vulcan cults. And
what's interesting is that is actually harkens back to an earlier Star Trek script called The God Thing, and also Planet of the Titans, which has that McCurry ship. And The God Thing became Star Trek the Motion Picture, Alan Dean Foster, and then rewrote it so that it would be more about a space probe that comes back and does things.
They sort of hack the story.
Because going to the edge of the universe and ripping through the universe and seeing the face of God just wasn't big enough. That's what they said.
Not only that, but even if they had filmed that ending, it's not much of an ending.
Yeah, it's like okay, now
just
what?
God's just staring back at him like, oh, yeah, so come back later. Like, just roll credits. Like, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so
I actually think they did a better thing with the motion picture, which there's another one that I think holds up.
And what's odd is you see the there was a book version of Star Trek V, and they had and Shatner and Lisa Beth, his daughter, wrote it. And
probably with some ghostwriters.
It was, well, we don't know whether she's a writer or not. I guess she's kind of a journalist. But they wrote it in the 90s, and they were late 80s. The movie came out. It was a companion piece to it, and they thought they had thought of this God thing. Shatner and his team thought they'd thought of the God thing independently, but then Berman and some of the other ones came out later, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, that was the plot of the first motion picture, but we just changed it to planet." And they're all, Shatner's all, really?
Yeah, I guess he wasn't paying attention at the story meetings back in the day. But,
well, he was an actor, which is interesting, not the producer.
Now, it must be said that of the two classic Trek actors who jumped into the directing, Leonard Nimoy clearly had the stronger chops.
Yeah.
Jumped in with, again, the third one, Search for Spock, which he came back to the franchise after wanting to be killed off in the second one, specifically on the condition that they let him direct the third one, because he wanted to get into that. And the directing in the third movie for a novice director is very confident and capable, and the movie zips right along. It's very smartly directed. And then he chased that with 4, which at the time was considered one of the best of the series. It was a much more lighthearted, breezy time travel one. Which interestingly I don't think holds up quite as well, just because it's so 80s. It's so dated now that like certain pop culture references and things that we just inherently got back then, you kind of have to stop and think like, wait, what were they referencing there? And the story kind of doesn't have much of an ending, other than they release some whales and the probe leaves.
Yeah, and there was another director, Jonathan Frakes, who directed First Contact, and then
I'm sorry, I was just going on about the classic ones. But I was just going to mention that Shatner decided, like, hey, Nimoy got to direct. I should get to direct too. And did not at the time have the chops to pull off a Star Trek movie. But, as you say, Jonathan Frakes definitely did.
And he did First Contact, and then one other. I think he did some episode, Insurrection.
Well, he cut his teeth on the TV series. He made it clear, like, he wanted to branch into directing. And he was an actor on the show, so he would just say, all right, for this season, can I do this one, and this one? And they were like, okay. And he was doing a bang-up job on that, so when it came time to make the first really standalone next-gen movie, they let him do it, and he knocked it out of the park, as far as us Trek fans were concerned.
What would you say, what would you say was probably the worst Star Trek movie of all the
it's subjective,
even the new ones.
And the thing is, it's hard to say because even the worst of them have good things in them, and even the best of them could be said to be flawed, and the things that are considered flaws or strengths can be subjective. If I'm speaking personally, I would say that while Star Trek V is definitely a clunker, it's cheesy, the pacing is weird, it's also the one, apart from the motion picture, that feels the most like an episode of classic Trek. Somehow Shatner was able to just sort of tap into, like, hey, it's still 1968, and we're having a space adventure with this cheesy, villain. So there's a charm to it that I like. So I could say that one is probably the worst, but I would say Generations does not hold up because that story is this Frankenstein mess of, like, different scripts cut together. It was nice to see Shatner on the big screen as Kirk one more time, but he really didn't belong in the story.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
And I would say of the Abrams-verse ones, Into Darkness, while it is a rollicking adventure that is well-directed and has great action, as Star Trek, for me personally, it sucks. It doesn't feel like Star Trek at all. It feels like Star Wars.
Which he went on to do Star Wars.
I like Star Wars, but I don't go to Star Trek to see Star Wars. So
no, Simon Pegg did a pretty good job on this latest one.
Yeah, so same question to you. What would you say is the worst?
Since we kind of explored the best, let's see what the worst is.
Yes.
The
worst of Star Trek.
Most people knock Insurrection for being really bad, although it was kind of a okay Star Trek.
It's very slight. It's like not even like a season finale episode. It's just sort of like a random episode.
Yeah. I didn't really hate Into Darkness as much as the other fans did. So, even though it clearly wasn't Khan, and if I was going back to do a Calcat edit, I would just change his name throughout the movie.
Just make him a different guy. Not him. It's still not going to really feel
not
like
Star
work,
Trek, but hey.
And I'm sorry, the whole, like, having Spock do the Khan, I laughed.
The audience laughed.
How do you feel about Nemesis? Because that one's a very polarizing.
I would say that was probably the weakest one, in a sense. I mean, it had, like, it's like, this is the one you guys go out on. This is the one, the last Next Generation movie. Why?
The script needed a rewrite, and honestly, I don't think the director did a bad job, but he didn't feel like he fit. Like, he didn't have any affinity for the characters.
He did not.
Yeah, he directed kind of like a studio, hired gun, as opposed to somebody who really wanted to be there.
That one's probably the most embarrassingly bad, I think, because for the technical wise, I would say. Why they let Stewart and Spiner pretty much take over production on this thing and kind of mess with it. Why they let their kill Data, well, everybody loved, with making it sort of a Wrath of Khan again. Sort of the same idea. Oh, we're gonna kill the android, but look, we got another android. We can totally download it later and make him work again.
The one who's like a tenth as smart, if even that, and somehow that's going to be the compelling replacement.
Or to like boot him up or something, but it's like and then that's what you go out on. It's like no, you don't go out on that.
A lot of ideas in there, like you could sort of see what they were trying to do, but again, the script just needed work.
And there is a Calcat version of this. We watched it years ago, and I fixed it. So
yeah, I mean, as much as it could be, I suppose. We can't upload that.
We
to
can't.
YouTube,
I'm sorry, we can't show you it. It's copyrighted.
It removed some stuff and changed some of the continuity around.
I made it look like Data didn't really die. That B4 actually was the one that died.
Which is
that Data was actually on Romulus after they rescued him.
Right.
And they went back for him and got him.
Little mean ending because nobody cared about B4. Honestly, who did anyway? He wasn't a compelling character. So I would concur that Nemesis of the next gen movies.
And I would say of Part 5 that there were some really, really glaring technical errors in there that I know the fans.
Some of the effects are like, wow, you went with that.
I'm just like, what the? Okay, you couldn't get ILM, so don't. I understand that the new one did get someone other than ILM, and it did all right.
Yeah, but there were pretty good effects in the new one.
But the Beyond, the Beyond. But there's the idea that Part 5. I mean, as a stickler, one of those fans that goes, "Oh, I know how many decks the ship has. I know all these other things and all these reference materials, and I know more than Scotty does. Ooh, Star Trek! I got all these books everywhere." One of those Star Trek fans. Mm-hmm. Okay, when he and I saw this movie in the theater, I'm like, wait a minute. Turbolift shaft, it's not that tall. Yeah, and the numbers wouldn't go up the inside of the shaft. They wouldn't do that.
Shooting up what looks like this endless, vertical
space
corridor. And we're just thinking about it afterwards, like, wait, if there was a corridor that big, even in the middle of the ship, wouldn't the saucer section be, like, as thick as a mile-high pie? I mean, it would
be ridiculous.
There's no way they have a corridor. And then, we're watching it again, and, we notice the numbers that they shoot past is, floor 57, floor 11, floor 92, floor 6. no continuity at all. Shatner himself acknowledged there were problems and he needed some help and he didn't get it.
And there was the Star Trek V video cassette remashup in which I just cut that scene out.
Actually,
so they walk into the turbo lift and go activate the rocket boots,
and then they get out of the turbo lift at the top. They went up like 4 floors, and that was the end of that.
Which is what it would have been.
Also, as I recall, didn't you cut in some footage of John Waters movies? Just because we could. It was hilarious.
But we can't show you that either.
We can't show you that either, but you'll just have to use your imagination.
Yeah, we were totally in Star Trek things. So we had...
So
yeah, of the classic Trek, since this is about the classic Trek, your favorite episode of the classic Trek?
You read my mind, like in Star Trek. I was going to say...
Favorite episodes of classic Trek.
The note we're going to go out on here, so we
because it's more about that.
Yeah, we don't want to yak away forever. I was going to say, let's each of us do favorite episode and least favorite episode of classic Trek.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite episode?
Well, I had to choose from their favorite episodes.
It's kind of hard to pick as an aficionado.
Well, yeah, I know that City on the Edge of Forever would be one of them.
That's going to be the top of most people's
time
list.
Travel, Harlan Ellison. I understand that the original script for that was really wackadoodling nuts. It had like a space drug dealer on the ship and everything, and people doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Harlan Ellison was kind of a maniac. He just came in and he's like...
And what's hilarious is when that one was being written, according to the Apocrypha, the show, there was a rubber plant in Gene Coon's office. And he was one of the writers back then, a producer and / writer. And he was apparently nervously eating pieces off the plant.
Chewing pieces of the plant off.
And he came back in, he's like, "What'd you do to my plant?" He's all, "Oops, sorry."
Yeah, some people chew on pencils. Apparently
Harlan Ellison eats
rubber plant. So, we don't know if that's true, but...
that's pretty funny, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but it's apocrypha. Yeah.
Would you say that is your episode, or do you have a favorite?
I liked that one. I liked... let's see... Well,
it's hard to pick.
Spock's Brain is my favorite dumb episode.
Yeah.
I think that's so bad.
Would you say that's like the worst?
Favorite worst one, but it's best of the worst. It's more like, this is so bad it's good.
Because even the worst of the worst episodes, I mean, there are some that are hard
Turnabout
to sit
Intruder
through.
is hard to watch.
Yeah, the one with the Coms and the Yangs, just so
Mega Glory.
Written.
That's probably the worst.
That might very well be the worst, although I always had... kind of a bad reaction to the Corbomite maneuver. Even though it's a clever idea, but the way it pans out at the end, with the, "It is okay, I am a badly dubbed little kid, and I was just messing with you, we're friends now, and everything's fine."
You just don't like little kid
and it was
brats.
Well, actually, I like, that's Clint Howard. And, mad props to Clint Howard, I'm not knocking him at all. It was such a cheesy ending for me after all this great build-up, and to just find out, it was just this, derpy little kid who, for no particular
Ron
reason...
Howard's kid, or?
Brother.
Yes.
So
is Dallas Bryce Howard a Howard from that group, too?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Lady from Jurassic Park.
I gotta fire up the
IMDb
on that. I don't know, because Howard's not that uncommon of a name, but...
I bet in Hollywood it isn't, though. Or lives really...
I don't know.
I bet she looks like Ron Howard a little bit. Maybe she's...
Could be like a daughter or something, for all I know.
Ron Howard's got to be in his 60s by now.
I know who Clint Howard is because I'm a genre fan, and he's been in, hundreds of really bad, wonderfully bad horror movies, like The Ice Cream Man and Ticks.
And The Ice Cream Man.
But, yeah, he got his start as a child actor. A lot of people don't realize this. At the same time, he was the voice of Roo in the original Winnie the Pooh Disney cartoons. They should have just let him use that voice for the little Corbomite.
Wasn't that a little later, though?
It was around about the same time.
The first Winnie the Pooh cartoon?
Yeah. Any other episodes that you either really liked or didn't like?
I liked the Menagerie. It was sort of a mismatch kind of thing. I liked the Ultimate Computer and the Doomsday Machine one.
Yeah, the last Battlefield episode with the people half
Trouble
black
with
and half
Tribbles
white.
is probably
Trouble with Tribbles.
Very fun one.
The one, I forget the name of the episode, but the one where the crewman, his eyes turn silver after encountering...
Where no man has gone before.
Yeah, duh. It's the tagline of the show. I can't believe I didn't remember.
Pilot.
But that
Second pilot. First pilot was the cage. We know.
Is like sort of the first real victory lap of the show, where it's just like, oh my god, this is why people are going to be tuning in every week.
It was the
to
second
get more
pilot.
Of this. Yeah, it was after the cage.
They had reworked everything and said, get rid of the guy with ears, and they're all, no, we have to keep him.
Yeah, keep him, but we'll change some of the crew up. But that episode, right out of the gate, it was just like, oh, this is must-see television every week. This is,
No, it was a cowboy adventure. He's basically down on a planet fighting. And it also is a cowboy adventure crossed with defeating the demigod, man versus god. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, man versus, like, seeming god who then gets, demystified and his powers taken away. One of the all-time great episodes has to be Arena with the Gorn.
Ah, yes, the Gorn.
You have to love the Gorn episode. Because it's got everything that's so wonderfully cheesy about They're fighting in the same rock quarry they go to like every other week. The rocks are obviously styrofoam. The fight choreography is so bad, and yet it's so wonderfully, just like...
They filmed the Flintstones movie there.
Oh, yeah. They should have used the Gorn in that movie.
That would have been funny.
But yeah, that episode it's so bare-knuckle, macho, Shatner just chewing the scenery and going mano a mano. It's like the final showdown in a Western with the black hat and the white hat cowboy, only it's like the whole episode. Yeah. And as a kid, I loved the idea.
They didn't have a tail because they couldn't make one.
They couldn't make a tail that wasn't just flopping around all rubber. But before I lose that thought, the thing about that episode that fascinated me as a kid was the idea that obviously Kirk can't beat this big old T-Rex dude. So Kirk uses this is like way before MacGyver, like figures out how to make a weapon using nothing but dirt and sticks and actually take down the Gorn. And as a kid, I was just like, wow, that's a great, twist and ending. And I was just... And being Star Trek, it ends on a sort of pacifistic note where they don't actually kill the Gorn; he just defeats it, and earns its respect.
So did you get what he was doing though when you were younger and watching it? That he
because they were
kind of explaining it that
he needs.
He found the rock salt and the saltpeter and the other thing, and he's going to make a
rudimentary gunpowder, which again, so it's like this low tech but still sci-fi solution to a insurmountable problem, which is what all classic Trek was just so perfect at embodying. So, there's possibly my classic episode.
There was the Trek Yards website had Alex Peters from was not running it, but the guy from Axonar took the Trek Yards guys to that rock quarry.
Oh, yeah, that would be a cool place to see.
Yeah. Now it's got things growing around it. They filmed it, so that
probably got
cool.
oil wells pumping.
They got people commenting in the comments saying, "Oh, Alec Peters, that's the Axonar guy. How could you let him do that?" And I was like, "He took them there." I was like,
"Yeah, what's the problem?
Why not?" It's like, well, I mean, as long as he's showing them around.
Yeah, who cares?
He didn't take us or anything. But
well, we don't actually know the
guy. These are guys that actually know the model makers and the leftover model people and stuff. Foley and Hawkins, and they know Rick Sternbeck and they know the other guys and they know all the art department people.
Yeah,
Star Trek. So they get them on their show and they have them commenting on the models.
Yeah,
which is really cool. But so
we don't have any insider connections like that. So
no, but they did. So that's how they met.
In our stuff is handmade.
That's how they met.
Arts and craft style, But yeah,
but you should watch the video, even though it's Alec Peters, because it is cool looking. You get to see the set,
But
yeah.
So anyway, so we've kind of covered like the legacy a little bit of what it means to us personally, stuff that we love about the show, stuff that we acknowledge is cheesy and dated, but still kind of charming.
So of the other shows, what was it? There's been 5, and there's an upcoming 6th one.
Yeah, there's a new series, which we've been saying for years needed to happen.
Clearly, when we went over Next Generation on our earlier rod, we went over Best of Both Worlds. We liked that one best.
I gotta say,
some of the other ones.
The special effects in the teaser for the new series left me a little underwhelmed.
A lot of people are saying
the ship looks like a computer effect from the earliest 2000s. Like, you'd think, you know, I mean, the stuff that kids are doing, 13-year-old kids on their laptops looks better.
Planet of the Titan ship, yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe they just rushed it out. But on the other hand, the teaser trailer for Beyond was nothing but a Beastie Boys song, and everybody was annoyed by it. It ended up being a perfectly good movie, so...
Yeah, and the Beastie Boys song fit in the...
Yeah, and they actually cleverly...
Although the Rihanna song in the very end credits doesn't really, so...
It doesn't really feel like Star Trek.
So we made fun of it.
It's just like, alright, that's the paradigm, it's 2016, that's going to be your end credit.
We made fun of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, so there's a new series in the works. There have been... you know, even the weaker of the series, like I would point to Enterprise and say that one really never quite got its wings. But it had perfectly good stuff in it, some good acting, good episodes. Voyager struggled.
Some people didn't really like Voyager. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that Janeway was a little manic.
I never had a problem with Janeway. The writing could be a little uneven.
Sometimes they would end an episode really abruptly because they ran out of like space,
and you could tell like they ran out of running time or something, and
they'd be like,
"Oh, the bad guys left."
We're trapped out in space, but no,
yeah,
it's okay.
Here's the ship. It's okay.
I was like, okay, but yeah, they had, you know, when you write one of those scripts, you have as many minutes as you have. It always looks different when you look at when they read the dialogue. It's longer than sometimes longer.
But yeah, that was an uneven show, but it had its bright points. Again, it kind of had its growing pains, and
Dark Frontier was cool.
Fully expect the new series will probably have some rough patches to get going, but every series does.
They got some Voyager guys, they got some DS9 guys, they got
interestingly,
Nick Meyer from
Meyer,
the classic,
old school,
and Rod Roddenberry.
The guy behind what is, I think, maybe inarguably the greatest Trek film, which is Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, and he helped on 4 and 6.
And he helped on 4 and 6, so of the original cast movies, those
he directed
three,
6.
He directed 6 as well.
With Denny Martin Flynn.
For their time, were certainly considered like the best of the Trek movies. Again, I think the other 3, including the 5th one, have their bright points and things to offer.
The chemistry works well with Star Trek V. The one with Kirk, Spock, and Bones, that's pretty spot on there.
It's the best stuff in that movie. Not the stuff with like evil Vulcan half-brother and all of that.
Which they never
Just the scenes where the 3 characters are yakking away at a campfire or like on the bridge debating something. That's what feels like classic Trek. And that's the reason why a Trek fan would sit through that movie, I think.
Yeah.
Not so much because you care what's going to happen when they get to the God Planet and then pretty much nothing happens.
Because they ran out of money.
They ran out of money. There was supposed to be a rock monster that tries to eat them. And
which was like, they ran out of money and they didn't have enough effects, which I can see, like, when they did the special editions back in 2005, was it?
They could have fixed it.
They totally could have used 2005 technology to fix the ending so there were at least more rock beings.
They could have given Shatner the rock monster army that he wanted. CG it. I mean, it's probably not going to look great, but it would have at least been the ending that he wanted. On the other hand, he didn't have the footage. You know, I'm sure he wanted reaction shots of the other characters, and I mean, DeForest Kelley was passed on at that point, so you weren't going to get any more shots of him to shoehorn in.
There was a guy named Gustavo Leo from Trek Web Now and Trek Core. He and his friends did a bunch of Star Trek V fixing the effects. And they put them up on their website if you want to see what the effects look like. If they actually looked with
that's a cool idea.
With 2009, they used I don't know what program they used.
That's an interesting
Final Cut
idea.
Pro or something.
You know, I haven't.
It looked actually pretty cool. Kind of
works.
works.
Did they fix it so that the God monster does something other than become like zoomed in on, and then his face puffs into a sparkler, and then
they fixed all the ship stuff. They fixed all they made it look like there were more monsters. I don't know if they did anything to the God creature, but they did do the ship stuff, and they made the torpedo not look like it phased out, but that it went past the ship and looked better. When Chekhov was warp speed, it looks better.
Oh so it doesn't just look like a cut and paste from a magazine.
It actually looks like the ship goes.
Yeah.
The torpedo goes.
Did they fix the bad jokes and the plot holes?
No.
I guess nobody could.
Maybe but they did just cut out the turbulence scene altogether.
Yeah. as we did. You know, we rib on the movie, but it is, if you're a Trek fan, if you've gotten that far in the series, if you like the classic show, and you know, like you're a young budding fan and you're just getting into it and you want to see where it all started, like the new movies, like they keep referencing stuff from the old show and you want to know where that's coming from, go, you know, do yourself a favor, check out the classic series and maybe look up and see what the fans, you know, consensus is like. These are the really good episodes that give you a good idea of like what the show is. Don't start with the Omega Glory because you're not going to want to come back for more.
Yeah, it's like when some of the actors got hired onto Voyager, including Garrett Wang, who was all like,
"Oh yeah,"
he was all like, you know, every time I turned on the Next Generation, it was the same damn episode. I kept turning it on, and it was always like. It was always
Code of Honor.
Code of Honor. All the time. They turned it back on Code of Honor.
He saw it like 3 different times because they were like, oh, you should be on this show. And he's like, oh, I've never seen it.
And they kept showing him Code of Honor.
He's like, oh, I think it's on tonight. So he watched an episode, and it was Code of Honor, which was a terrible episode.
Second episode of TNG. They didn't know what they were doing yet.
I'm sorry. That one really sucked.
Of all the TNG ones, that's probably one of the worst
So like a week later, or not like a week, but like a month later, he's like, all right, I should give that show another shot. And he turns on, it just happens to be a rerun of that one again. And then it happened a third time, and he was just like, all right, the universe is trying to tell me not to be on this show, but I guess he finally read some of the other scripts and decided it was good.
Somebody from my church was actually one of the runners-up to play that character on Voyager.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in the Bajol footage as that character, which is just funny because you just watch that footage and you're like, yeah, that's not Garrett Wang, it's some other guy that looks kind of like him, but it's not him. No, that was the guy from the church. Yeah, so that's cool. But yeah, kind of yellowed, you know.
Yeah.
On the sun.
Robotech.
Yeah. Well. So
anyway, I was going to say we've been going on for like 30 minutes here,
oh Jesus.
So might have to trim some of the chaff, I suppose. But yeah, for the most part, we were we
Star
talked
Trek,
about classic Trek, Legacy.
Classic Trek. Yeah, more about the Star Trek stuff. Well, I just liked the Robotechs, but the Paramount people, it seems like they're short on the uptake, kind of slow about going to the 50th anniversary. It's almost like they didn't realize it was going to happen, and then during the production of Beyond, they before it was Beyond, they got rid of Roberto Orci and them, and they realized, oh no, in a year there's going to be 50th anniversary. We didn't even remember or realize or anything. And it's like, you guys should have known. So they didn't rush to production, but they got a new guy. They got Simon Pegg to direct it. They wanted to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Pegg didn't direct it. He wrote it.
He wrote it.
Yeah.
Jason Lin directed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got a Fast and the Furious guy. Justin Lin.
Yeah. He actually acquitted himself quite nicely as the Trek director.
And it's like Paramount. I guess the Bad Robot people wanted to pretend like the original Trek never happened.
Yeah, their whole shtick was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's in the past. Don't worry about it. Star Trek is now what we're doing.
And they had like an action figure line from Playmates. That they got Playmates again for the first movie. They never finished it because it didn't make any money, so they had all these extra Playmates figures. They never finished the whole playset. But back in the 90s, they had a playset that was a different scale. And they had, for all the way through the 90s, they had all the Star Treks. All they had to do was do that scale again, but with a new cast. What they should do now is go back to them and do a 50th anniversary re-release of all of the Playmates figures, including the current ones, so that fans can buy they can even make new ones of different. There we go. Yeah. And they should totally do that. And the models and the toys and everything, and we'll buy them.
Right. See, the thing is, guys like us would, but of course, we're outside of the
well, that's why you put some of the new Beyond stuff in there,
too. Yeah. It would be nice for, the new old school fans like us, but of course, we're not quite the fringe of who they're targeting, but they're going after, like, the 13-year-olds going to the multiplex, on summer vacation.
But I want Star Trek themed everything, like the Disney people, they know how to do it. That new Star Wars Episode 7 was coming out, and everything had Star Wars on it. Towels, mugs,
yeah, of course
hats,
they were spending
toys.
like $1 billion on merchandising.
And even now the movie's like a year. That movie's been out almost a year, and the toys are still stocked in the toy stores. You can still go in there and buy all the Star Wars stuff from that episode and the Rebels. The Disney people, they really know how to
they're going to
market their stuff.
Will Star Wars into being this long-running, super profitable franchise, whether you like it or not, because they spent $6 billion. So
awesome
of course
movies.
they're going to merchandise the.
And it was J.J. Abrams who went on to do Star Wars.
And which is what I think he always really kind of wanted to be doing, rather than Star Trek.
We're not.
We are not making Star Wars, but we are making a Star Trek fan film.
Yes, Star Trek fan film. And I've made many Robotech and Transformer fan films.
Yes.
In the meantime.
Indeed.
So yes.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole reason that we're still going on about Star Trek all these years later is because it's going back to the original genesis of the, original show, which I wasn't even born yet when it came out, and I still came to it as a kid and fell in love with it. And
what was the first story you actually remember from Star Trek, the original series?
That's difficult to say because I've been watching it in rerun pretty much since I've been cognizant, so I was always aware of Star Trek and who the characters were. Of course, as a little kid, I didn't really understand what was going on particularly, but the episodes that really stood out in my mind as a kid, again, the Gorn episode made an impression. Where No Man Has Gone Before left an impression. Sitting on the Edge of Forever, which I didn't realize as a kid had the reputation of being one of the greatest episodes. I just remember watching that one and going, wow, that one was really good. And any number of, the lesser episodes you want to say that were still memorable just because they had an interesting alien or a creepy effect. I do remember one that Robert Bloch had written. Was the one with the space witch who's like a black cat.
Cat's Paw.
Cat's Paw. Which was an interesting attempt to bring on like a guy more noted for writing like genre and horror stuff, and let him do sort of a spooky episode, and he did a fun.
There was another spooky episode. It was called The Man Trap, and that's the first one I remember.
Yes, and that one did leave an impression
episode.
Because that monster freaked me.
That thing was scary
out.
When you're like 3.
That had like the same way Doctor Who traumatized a nation of British kids. The Salt Vampire was a scary monster.
I was 3, and they started the reruns in syndication in '73, and that's about what I.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And to a 3-year-old, that would have been like,
what is that?
You were looking under your bed every night for like a year after you watched that episode.
Well, yeah. So
I mean, you can look at it as an adult and just be like, that's kind of a silly idea, but on just a purely like sci-fi '60s primal level,
it had jazz hands with little cups on it.
Oh yeah, with the little sucker cups. It like hickeys you to death, basically. But I mean, what a cool sci-fi concept! It's a vampire awesome. that wants a vital mineral in your body. I could. Maybe Cronenberg was a Trek fan as a kid. I don't know.
Not quite Lovecraftian though. He would have been a little more weird.
No, but some of classic Trek kind of has a Lovecraftian thing. Whenever they're up against some unknowable, abyssal sort of thing, monster, other thing, or an ancient
computer
machine
that took over for the colony or whatever.
And
he would have done that.
Classic episodes could be surprisingly atmospheric for their time and kind of creepy, and I loved that as a kid. I wasn't traumatized at all.
There's even a little Heinlein in there. There's even For the World is Hollow When I Touch the Sky.
Yes.
Now he didn't actually write that episode. They were ripping off a Heinlein story, but in a Star Trek episode,
pretty much.
But called Universe and Common Sense, which is one of the first sci-fi stories I ever read as a kid. Wow, this cool colony thing. It was like that idea of like this space colony that didn't realize they were a space colony.
Yeah.
And they were like out in space, and they didn't realize they were even on a ship. Mm-hmm. And God was the computer and whatever.
Yeah, and of course Kirk has to show up and ruin it for them.
Essentially destroying their society.
Your God is false. It's just a bunch of computer tape reel-to-reels. Rip there. You have no God anymore. Isn't that great? And everyone's just like,
You just destroyed the Prime Directive, Kirk, again.
Like you do virtually every week.
Picard would never do that.
No. Well, he might have, but he would have agonized about it a bit.
Oh, yeah, Riker. Huh. There was some Next Gen ones too, and yeah, so Star Trek, 50 years.
Yeah, classic stuff.
Paramount, get with it. Start putting out some more merchandise.
He'll buy them.
I'll buy them. I won't be the only one. Come on. All of Trek Core will buy it.
Yeah, I have no doubt. Yeah, I mean, they are being stingy with the merchandising.
Well, they've re-released some of the stuff again, the stories and episodes again. But I want to see, just 50th anniversary. I want to get a 50th anniversary T-shirt. It says 50th anniversary.
Oh yeah,
Star Trek.
There really isn't such a thing.
50th anniversary.
Hey, cat.
And their 50th anniversary logo is kind of ugly. It's just a 50 with a.
Yeah,
but I'll take it anyway.
Didn't put a whole lot of.
Yeah, it's like they rushed it. It's
into that.
It's this 50 inside the chevron and the Star Trek logo.
Yeah.
It looks like they did it in an hour on Photoshop.
Again, that's another thing that the Disney folks could have done in their sleep, probably with a little more panache. They have a.
I could have done a better logo than that, and I'm not even working for them or nothing. Come on, guys, get with it.
But yeah, so anyway,
they will be releasing a better Discovery trailer than that one, but.
We hope. But yeah, so anyway,
but also for you Trek fans, what would be interesting is they have released 12 episodes from the Roddenberry Vault. It's going to come out on Blu-ray pretty soon. It's going to have the behind the scenes of 12 classic episodes, showing like interviews and bloopers and maybe other stuff like that.
If there are heretofore unseen bloopers, that alone makes
that's going to be awesome. Pick that up. That is something that's coming up for the 50th. Yeah. Rod Roddenberry dug around in the vault and he's all, look what I found.
If you're a fan, you got to check that out.
Yes, go check it out.
So
we're not working.
We're not affiliated with Paramount. We're fans. We're gonna buy it. So.
We're gonna buy it. We'll buy
it. Anyway, yeah. If you're a budding fan, you like the Abrams movies, you want to see more. There's a whole series out there that waiting to be explored. So check it out. Do yourself a favor. So yeah, and the cat agrees. This is the cat from Cat's Paw.
Kind of, yeah.
She's gonna assault vampire you in a second.
That's the other one.
I'm doing a crossover.
That'd be kind of awesome. We did a fanfic of Cat's Paw with Tim. It was rather cheesy. Not the cat creature.
I don't think I remember that one.
I think it was just me and Tim, I guess. Well, like the cat creature shows up, he's really scary. Oh, that's pretty funny. But yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So
and it was threatening Pine Hill. It was all gigantic. I drew a picture of it.
We've been going on for like 42 minutes. I gotta get going.
Yeah. So.
But yeah. So anyway, Star Trek. Check it out.
Live long and prosper.